Okay, we'll go ahead and officially get started. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Navigating Unemployment Insurance Zoom meeting. Julianne Barone will be our expert presenting today. And as I said at the beginning, please feel free to turn your camera off, but please keep your microphone on mute. But as we go, I'm sure Julianne will be open to questions, but we will at the end have a Q&A session where if you have questions, we'll just need you to type it in the chat. And if Julianne doesn't have the answer, she's committed to helping us track an answer down. So Julianne, I will hand it over to you. The Zoom is yours.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you about this vital program. I am the legal chief of the Office of Unemployment Insurance Operations within Job and Family Services Department. And the reason that I'm speaking to you today about SharedWork Ohio and the CARES Act intersection is I helped to create the SharedWork Ohio program back in 2013. It went through about 17 different iterations of legislation before it finally got passed. So this is kind of my baby, and I think it's such an important program, particularly right now during the pandemic. And I can attest that I've probably spoken to 700 of the 900 to 1,000 employers that have signed on to this program since the start of the pandemic in March. So the SharedWork Ohio is Ohio's version of the federal short-time compensation program. As I said, it was enacted in 2013 and was fully automated in our Ohio job insurance system. It sits on top of it in about 2015. And before the pandemic hit, we had about 76 employers participating because the economy was good and there wasn't the need for a program like this. But like I said, through word of mouth, through these types of presentations, the program has grown probably 2,000% at this point. Part of the reason for the growth is the incentives that were provided under the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act. And we'll talk about that a little bit and the financial implications for employers. This is our SharedWork Ohio logo. The program itself is intended to avoid layoffs. Certainly during the pandemic, it's also been used as what we like to call a reverse layoff program, where folks had to be let go maybe because of shutdowns, people had stay-at-home orders, and then the businesses started coming back slowly. As businesses came back, employers could utilize this program to bring people off the layoff rolls and onto the SharedWork Ohio program. The program truly is a program about a reduction of hours. That is the key distinction between this program and the unemployment compensation program. In typical unemployment compensation, you're going to, as the employer and the claimant, report outside earnings if you're working part-time. Those earnings will then offset or deduct whatever eligibility that you have weekly in unemployment compensation. In SharedWork Ohio, that's not the case. We ask the employer and employees, because it's a two-part contract, to tell us what actual reduced hours or a regular schedule that they worked each week. And that is the extent of this contractual plan. It is not about what did you pay them for their hours, or them telling us what their earnings were. But key is that normal hours each week must be reduced between 10% and up to 50%. So a 40-hour-a-week employee with no overtime included, because that's a Federal Fair Labor Standards Act regulation. A 40-hour employee that was on a 50% plan would work 20 hours, and they would apply for regular employment. They would be attached as a SharedWork Ohio participant, and they would receive 50% of their SharedWork Ohio, of their weekly benefit amount in unemployment, which equates to their SharedWork Ohio compensation. I'm going to attempt to show you a short video about how SharedWork Ohio works.
Has your business been negatively affected by unforeseen difficulties? Are there times when business is slow? Have you been considering layoffs? SharedWork Ohio can help you cut costs and offers an alternative to layoffs. The program allows employers to reduce affected employees' hours by 10 to 50%. Employees receive SharedWork Ohio benefits to supplement their income due to that reduction in hours. What are the benefits? Employers retain skilled workers who otherwise might have to be laid off or furloughed. Employers save the time and expense of hiring and training replacement workers when conditions improve. The anxiety associated with a layoff is reduced. Employees maintain existing benefits, such as healthcare and seniority. And employees are not required to register for work or conduct a work search. Employers determine what units are affected and may establish multiple plans with different reductions in hours. You, the employer, can tailor the plan to fit what works best for your situation. If your business needs change, plans may be modified or terminated at any time. For example, James normally works 40 hours a week and earns $1,000. If fully unemployed, he is eligible for a weekly benefit of $400. Instead, his SharedWork Ohio employer has reduced his hours by 20%. SharedWork Ohio benefits are calculated by applying the reduction percentage to the weekly benefit amount. In this example, James will work 32 hours a week, earn $800, and receive $80 a week in SharedWork Ohio benefits. Every business has its highs and lows. SharedWork Ohio can save money and jobs. For more information, email sharedwork_ohio at jfs.ohio.gov or call 866-733-0025, option 3.
At the end of the presentation, I have a slide with my contact information and my technical right hand for SharedWork Ohio. And if you have difficulties getting through to the general line, please feel free to email me directly. As the short video laid out, this program helps maintain staff for future business growth, reduces retraining costs, employers keep their employees have continuity of work, you're able to social distance, change up hours, space people out during this pandemic, and have people working remotely at a reduced schedule. The program parameter truly is about a reduction in hours. It's a safety net program. It's available for up to a year or 52 weeks. And what we've seen is even employers who have been able to bring their employees back to work full time because business opened back up, they still maintain their plans week by week or bi-weekly, that's your option, because they want to have it there should there be another, unforeseen circumstance. And right now we know day by day, week to week, employers can expect unforeseen circumstances. So this program truly is a safety net if you do have to reduce individual's hours in any given week once you're approved for the plan. You can terminate your plan at any time if you're back full time and you expect to stay that way. Certainly you can terminate it and file a new plan if need be, but you will have it there for up to 52 weeks if you need it. The other part about this is there is maximum flexibility, and I don't think that's apparent in some of the informational materials, so let's talk about that. You can submit various plans if you have large groups of people that you want to be at a certain reduction percentage. So if you had a production unit you wanted on a 50% plan and an administrative unit that you wanted on a 20%, you could do two different plans. Or if it wasn't a sizable group of people, you could combine them all into one plan. And the key is that you track all of the individual's actual hours worked each week. There's also flexibility person by person within the week. So if you needed to bring somebody back full time, doing that would not affect your SharedWork Ohio plan. It would just affect the eligibility of that individual for that week. But I say that with the caveat that we encourage people to bring the employees back to their normal weekly hours of work. That's the point of the program. So even though they're not going to get the SharedWork Ohio benefit that week, they'll be working their normal schedule. That flexibility is included in this plan participation, but you do need to know upfront when you submit your plan application what you think your reduction percentage will be, because it will be, as I'll show you on a screenshot, it'll be uploaded and automated so that, say you followed your plan to the T, week in and week out, everybody worked a 50% reduced schedule. All you would have to do is hit yes, yes, yes as the HR professional or whoever's administering this. All you'd have to do is hit yes, and it would take 5 minutes for you to complete your employer portion of the plan. A few other key distinctions between this program and traditional unemployment. Employees don't search for work. However, the federal standard for meeting the active search for work requirement is that employees be available to you, the employer, for up to their normal weekly hours of work. So with James in that video, he's working a 32-hour work week, and he is offered 40 hours for the week because the employer has additional hours. If he says, nah, I'd rather just stay home on Friday, that's going to impact his eligibility. He has to be available to the employer for up to the normal weekly hours of work. Additionally, outside employment could affect eligibility week to week, and that is the responsibility of the employees. After the employer files each week or biweekly the list of employees' actual hours worked, the employees are going to go into their account and attest that the employer's information is accurate, and they're also going to tell us if they have another job, because it's the total hours each week must be reduced between 10 and up to 50% in order to get SharedWork Ohio compensation. And then finally, a point that is actually a huge benefit to both employers and employees, paid approved leave counts towards SharedWork Ohio hours in a work week. So if James, working his 32-hour work schedule, received approval from you to go on vacation for 32 hours, you would still fill out James's schedule as if he worked his reduced work week, and he would still get the SharedWork Ohio benefit. Conversely, if he took 40 hours of paid FMLA, just by way of example, he wouldn't get his benefit because he didn't have any reduction in his work for that week. This is a screenshot of the plan application that you will fill out online, and it is a series of yes or no questions, and it's essentially the federal regulations. So things like you agree to provide health and retirement benefits at the same rate as if these employees were not participating, and you agree that none of your employees that you've added to this program are seasonal, intermittent, or temporary employees. You attest that you're current on all taxes and reporting, things like that. And then this portion of the plan application is what enables the Ohio Job Insurance System to view your employees as participating employees in this program and not as claimants in the traditional unemployment program. You are going to tell us, you're going to upload a customized spreadsheet that has their SSN, first name, last name, their normal weekly hours of work, and you're going to look at that pre-COVID. You know, if they've reduced their hours in the last few months, that's not their normal weekly hours. Here it's the normal weekly in the normal setting, and then what your reduction percentage will be. And certainly, like I said, there is flexibility if you want to change that week in, week out, or person by person, as long as the hours reduction is between 10 and 50. This is a screenshot of what you'll see when you complete your portion of the contract each week or biweekly. So you can see participating employee A worked her normal schedule. She is on a 10% reduction. She worked for 36 hours, but participating employee B only worked 20 hours. Then you're going to tell us why. This first drop down is available to you when the employee says, no, I don't want to work more than 20 hours. The second one is when it's within your control. So you only had 20 hours available to this person. The difference is the first one will set an issue and could impact their eligibility. The second one is your flexibility to vary the hours week by week. Then after you've completed at the end of the week your portion of the contract, so to speak, you will notify your employees that they need to go in and fill out their responsibility, which is essentially attesting that, yes, the employer reflected my accurate work schedule, and telling us if they had outside work. That is a summary of the SharedWork Ohio program as is. This next portion relates to the incentives provided in the Federal CARES Act for this particular program, for all states' short-time compensation programs, of which SharedWork Ohio is one. And the biggest one is the financial impact on employers. This program is 100% federally funded through the end of the year. It is typically a cost-neutral program that is funded in the same way that regular unemployment compensation is funded. That's why it's such an incentive right now. You will not be charged if you sign up now through the end of the year. And potentially that could be extended, but we can't count on that because that's up to the federal government. The parameters are the funding is for up to 26 weeks of benefits. So if you had employees that were laid off for 5 weeks, those weeks would count against the 26 weeks if they were claiming traditional unemployment. And then the federal government loves to underscore that you cannot include temporary, seasonal, or intermittent employees. Then you see this last bullet is the federal pandemic unemployment compensation benefit, or what everybody knows as the $600 a week add-on. During the period of applicability, let me go back. It did apply to shared work. It just ended July 25th. However, as I'm sure you've seen, the president recently, I believe it was Saturday or Sunday, enacted executive orders that authorized FEMA money to provide an additional benefit to individuals who are participating in unemployment programs. And this includes, but is not limited to, SharedWork Ohio participating employees. We're still working out the details about it. I believe that's also through the end of the year. I know that the parameter is that they have to have a weekly benefit of amount of at least $100 in order to get the benefit. I can't tell you with certainty what that amount will be, but it's looking like $300 or possibly $400. That is if these orders do not get challenged, and that's if Congress doesn't come and act and create a different type of benefit. That is what I know to date. So I want to underscore that incentives for employers to keep their employees employed continue. And this latest executive order by the president is another example of that. And then during the pandemic, I included a summary of the other programs just so you had a high level understanding of the other benefits that the CARES Act provided to Ohioans. This one, pandemic unemployment assistance, is typically for your restaurant workers, your Uber drivers, your self-employed folks, and also individuals who cannot meet the monetary threshold for traditional unemployment. So they haven't worked 20 weeks, maybe they're right out of college and they had a job offer, and due to COVID, they weren't able to go to work, or they aren't making $269 a week. This program covers them. This is separate and apart from SharedWork Ohio, but I wanted to let you know that it is out there. And that program is through the end of the year, and they must meet a COVID-19 related circumstance in order to qualify. There are 11 of them. They're fairly broad, but I know a big one that people talk about is if a primary caregiver cannot return to work because they have childcare issues. In that instance, under traditional unemployment, that does not constitute good cause to quit or refuse work by law, but someone could be eligible for this particular program because that is a federal eligibility scenario. And all of it's very complex and hard to explain, so please feel free to ask questions if you have any. This slide we covered. This is the pandemic unemployment compensation. It's still on here because I intend to change it to whatever it turns into, but this particular program expired July 25th in Ohio, and I hope to change it to this, I think it's called Lost Wage Assistance Program under FEMA. And then for individuals who are on traditional unemployment and they exhaust, the CARES Act provided an additional 13 weeks of traditional unemployment benefits. That too is through the end of the year. The programs that I mentioned are all fully federally funded. So there is no financial impact on employers due to these programs. However, for traditional unemployment benefit charges, for reimbursing employers, those are your employers who don't pay taxes quarterly, but they pay benefits dollar for dollar as the charges are incurred, they are reimbursed 50% of their benefit charges through the end of the year. For contributory employers or your tax-paying employers, that's governed by state law, not by the CARES Act. And under state law, both in the governor's executive order and followed up in House Bill 197, temporary law language was added that during the period that the governor has an emergency declared, contributory employers' charges for traditional unemployment will be mutualized. So they spread the wealth. No individual employer will be charged, but it will impact the mutual account. And that sums up my presentation here. Please take down my contact information. And I welcome any questions.
If you have any questions, please feel free to type them in chat, or since we're a smaller group, if you'd like to unmute and ask your question directly, please go ahead at this time. And if you have a question where you don't quite feel like you want to ask it in this environment, if you'd like to email Stephanie or I, we will get it to Julianne and she will track down answers for us. Even if it doesn't fall in her wheelhouse, she knows people. So.
Absolutely.
Give each other just a few more minutes, or a few more seconds, I should say. One more chance. Anybody with questions?
Jacqueline.
Yes, please. Kimberly, I hear you.
Hi, Miss Jacqueline. Hi, Julianne.
Hi.
Hi. So a lot of questions that I'm hearing from businesses. I work for the City of Medina. I'm Economic Development Director. And so a lot of companies, they have laid off people. And it sounds like if they're on just regular Ohio benefits, or maybe it's the pandemic, I'm not even sure, but so they laid them off due to COVID, and it sounds like the people don't have to look for work, but they do have to be available back to that employer that laid them off. Is that correct?
Let me break it down by program. I think that'll be easiest.
Okay.
If they're on traditional unemployment and they were laid off due to COVID, that state law, the House Bill 197, as well as the executive order by the governor, waived the active search for work requirement during the period of emergency. That work search waiver applies to all of the unemployment programs. The extended unemployment, extended benefits. Nobody is searching for work right now. They do have to be able to work and available for work if they're called back. But just to throw another wrinkle of complexity in this in this conversation, the governor also issued an executive order that is regarding good cause to refuse work. So I'm sure employers, may have questions about that. There were 5 bright line good cause definitions that the governor executed during the period of the pandemic. They include if somebody's 65 years or older, or if they have a doctor's recommendation that they stay home because they fall in a high risk category as defined by the CDC. They are caring for a family member with COVID. And there are a few others. I can pull it up if you want the specifics. But so an employer may report this individual was offered work and they refused to go to work. And what's going to happen is our office will look at the facts from both the employer and the employee and will apply this executive order, this new criteria during the pandemic to determine whether they had good cause to refuse work or to quit work.
So does the employee have to provide some kind of proof to the employer that they're caring for a family member with COVID or their age or something like that?
Yeah, the age will have, because if they are a claimant and they refused work, we'll have it in the system. Or if they quit work and they filed an application, we'll get it that way. But yes, there's procedure that lays out specific proof requirements, documentation that we need, doctor's notes, things like that, based on the bright line definition.
Okay.
For the pandemic unemployment assistance program, that's your self-employed, your gig workers, your restaurant, they each week have to be able and available for work, and they have to self-attest that they meet a COVID-19 scenario, and they have to tell us what it is. So that's the program integrity piece. That's us saying, okay, we're trusting you, but you need to tell us each week, why are you still out of work? And they have to meet one of the 11 federal CARES Act eligibility scenarios.
Okay.
For shared work, they just need to be available. So if you say, I have 40 hours this week, you need to come back, they need to come back or they're not going to get the benefit.
So in a situation when you have the regular unemployment insurance and the company laid them off, they're still job attached, the company wants to call them back to work. If that person refuses to come back because they're making more money on unemployment and they have the $600 a week federal pandemic, is that a refusal to be available for work?
That's where the analysis about good cause comes in. And that's where the governor's executive order that laid out 5 bright line definitions of good cause comes
Okay.
into play. So somebody in your fact pattern, they refuse to come back to work. What we're going to do is ask the employer, well, why did they tell you they refused? We're going to ask the claimant, why did you refuse? And maybe the claimant says, I'm 70 years old and I'm afraid because I don't want to catch the COVID-19. They'll be considered to have good cause. Somebody else says, I'm just afraid. You know, they don't have any proof of any health or safety violations. They don't meet one of the good cause elements. In that case, they will lose eligibility for benefits. It's all a case-by-case analysis and an application of that definition of good cause.
Okay. So on the PEUC, pandemic emergency unemployment, is that if you run out of regular Ohio benefits, you get a 13-week extension?
That's exactly right.
Okay. And then, so they'd really have like the 26 plus the 13, and then
And there was one we didn't really talk much about.
okay.
So add another wrinkle, there's what's called federal state extended benefits.
Right.
So anyone who's eligible for traditional unemployment and they've already exhausted the 26 weeks, they go to the PEUC, they exhaust the 13 weeks. I haven't checked in a couple of weeks, but it's my understanding that we're still in Ohio currently triggered on for an additional 20 weeks of benefits under this extended benefit program by virtue of our unemployment rate, like how high it is.
Okay.
It has us triggered on to 20 weeks. If that is not still the case, I will email Jacqueline and let her know.
Okay.
Either we're triggered on only to 13 at this point or we're triggered off, which I highly doubt. I think it's still 20 weeks.
Okay.
And during the period that the governor has declared the state of the emergency, and according to House Bill 197, it's through that period of time or December 1st, whichever is earlier, work search is waived for all these programs.
Okay. So you called that one, what did you call it again? The state federal extension?
State federal extended benefits. We call it the EB program, but extended benefits.
EB. Okay.
That's different from PEUC, the
Right.
federal emergency unemployment. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
The $600, FYI, you mentioned, that's no longer in existence. We're now in this limbo stage where the president just created an executive order, but Congress is still discussing it.
Okay.
And I think the executive orders, from what I've heard, they're being challenged. So I can't tell you with certainty whether
Right.
or when any additional benefits will be paid out.
Okay, so at this point, the $600 a week has run
It's-
out and the state is not issuing, or the federal government's not issuing those checks any longer. Is that correct?
With the only caveat that if they were due back pay,
Right.
then they would still be getting the 600. But in terms of eligibility for it from this point forward, it doesn't exist anymore.
Okay, so meaning if they had trouble getting their claim application in and they're trying to get caught up. Okay.
Exactly.
So what the president authorized through the executive order was that $400 for Ohio or across the board, or?
The complexity there is the way the order is written. It says $400 with $300 being provided by the federal government, which is 75%, and $100 being provided by the state.
Gotcha.
But then there's a remaining question of how a state can satisfy its $100 payment. And I believe they're getting creative with that. So it might only be a $300 add-on based on how that shakes out.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Just as a side note, I know you don't make the rules, but I talk to companies every day and they're really struggling to get people to come to work or take a job because they're making more on unemployment. And so that $600 a week federal pandemic has really made it challenging. I don't know how it'll pan out with the $400. Maybe it'll be a little better, but it's almost like we're encouraging people to stay home. So I know you're not the decision maker, but if you can talk to your people and let them know.
Well, it's at the federal level, so it's not even something that I could contact the governor's office and say we shouldn't do this. Certainly, it has been a topic of great discussion, and in my presentations about shared work, it inevitably comes up, and that is one of the benefits of including the incentive in the shared work program too, because it level sets, for employers who are able to keep their employees on the rolls just at a reduced hourly. They can take advantage of the benefit too. But you're correct. Just as many employers are struggling because they can't bring their folks back during this strange, unprecedented time, and there are additional reasons why they can refuse work, and that has posed challenges, especially to some of the essential businesses. But yeah, that's something for our federal legislators, and I think that is a large reason why Congress can't agree on the next stimulus package. But to give you a little background, I think the $600 came about because they utilized a program that wasn't intended for this level of cash influx. This is an insurance program, but they utilized the unemployment system. And in order to get money out quickly to Ohioans in need, nationwide to all states, if they had to do a pro rata share in order to not make people make more than what they are receiving if they were fully unemployed, that would have taken forever to program the system. As it is, it might take a long time to program the system for this new benefit. So I can't tell you when we're going to get any added benefits out if that is something they go forward with.
Okay, thank you for your time.
You're welcome.
And Kimberly, thank you for your questions and your comments. I appreciate you chiming in. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anybody else on this Zoom have any questions for Julianne right now? I haven't seen any more chats come through, so we'll give you about 30 seconds here as we wrap up. If you'd like to unmute yourself and ask a question, please do so. But otherwise, we have recorded this Zoom. It will be uploaded to the Chamber's YouTube page, and you'll be able to rewatch. And again, if you have additional questions, you feel comfortable emailing Stephanie or I, we'll get those questions over to Julianne and we'll get you an answer. So thank you, Julianne, very, very much for taking the time. I know how busy you are. I appreciate you doing this for us. Everybody else, thanks for joining us, and we will see you down the road. Have a great day.
Take care.